I made an editorial comment yesterday, half tongue-in-cheek, about the cold and about people who say things like, well, I wish it would just snow before Christmas and then stay. And I wish it would get cold and just stay. One temperature all through the winter. The ups and downs are killing us. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, you're one of those guys who used to say that.
Well, that's true. I mean, those freezings and thaws just wreak havoc on the roads. It does. So, I mean, if it's going to freeze and stay there. Don't shoot up above, the melting point or the thawing point and freeze again. It's just let's -4 and stay there. We'll be fine.
So how's that working for you?
Well, it seems not to be working at all.
Exactly.
I mean, it was. I think it was 5 o'clock Monday morning. It was -25 here, something like that. Ridiculous. We have to talk to somebody in charge.
And then you had a water outage last week as well, which was very disruptive because we all thought it was in the new system.
But it was in the old system.
Yeah.
But like I say, when you get those cold snaps into the -20s, I'll tell you, it doesn't take much to cause a problem.
Now, I'm looking at your agenda for tonight's town council meeting, and this, of course, is the committee of the whole meeting, and those are meetings where you receive reports and look at detailed information. This one looks like a light kind of meeting in the sense that you seem to be limited this time to the regular monthly reports from your various town departments and financial representatives and so on, except for one thing. And that's a reference from the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities, which is urging all of its members across the province. Now, the members of the NSFM are the towns and cities and municipalities in Nova Scotia. And they're emphasizing that you, Mr. Mayor, your town, and all the others should collaborate with the province on fighting the U.S. tariffs being imposed by Mr. Trump. What role could you play in your town?
There's a question. I mean, I think on a grassroots level, I'm hearing a lot of people in town here are starting to look at labels when they're buying products, and it may sound small, but I think it will send a message eventually. There is, I think it's worrisome for everybody. We've got a large industry here that has cross-border ties. It's a concern for the town. So, we shall, I guess we're in a situation where we have to more react than be proactive. But like I say, there is this groundswell of buying local, buying Canadian, checking the labels. I'm just curious to see what sort of effect these tariffs have, or what kind of results these tariffs on steel and aluminum are going to bring from the Canadian government and even the provincial government.
Well, actually, we went through that before when Trump was elected the first time. He actually imposed tariffs on steel and aluminum at that time. And it wasn't too long before they took them off. Well, actually, I think it went about a year and took them off. But you would have thought that he might have learned a lesson that time because, I mean, he got complaints from all over the United States. The cost of living, the cost of a whole bunch of products went up because of that tariff. And, the difference this time is that once again the man tells lies with a straight face. I mean, there's not a better liar in the world, and I don't mind saying that. If he wants to sue me, we can talk about all the cases he's already lost in court: convicted thief, convicted rapist, convicted liar. I don't have a problem saying it because he's such a bully. But having said that, you would think he would learn the lesson. But this time, he said it all again. We're going to put all these costs, this tax, 25% tax on everything. But he convinced voters that somehow Canada was going to pay for it. It's no different than he was going to build a wall that Mexico was going to pay for. I don't know how he can pull this off every time.
Well, Bill, it's like I've said a couple of times. You look at how smart the average person is. Well, half the how stupid the average person is, half the population's even stupider. I mean, he has duped millions, literally millions.
Unquestionably.
And the money from these tariffs, nobody in the state seems to be asking where it's going. It goes into the U.S. coffers. It doesn't go back to the public. It just builds up the coffers.
Well, he gave them to believe that he was going to get these billions from Canada and put it into, as you say, put it into the general revenue, into the coffers of the United States. But there was never any reference made to, what would he do with it, except that he hinted that the cost of living, the cost of groceries would come down.
Yes.
And of course, what he has really said is that he has another plan. He did it the first time he was in, another plan to reduce taxes on his rich buddies. And that's where the billions will go, back to the rich guys.
More than likely.
No more likely, definitely.
Yes. Anyway, I mean, I'm kind of hoping that the premier decides to make good with this threat to pull all U.S. liquor off the Nova Scotia Liquor Commission shelves as a form of protest. And I'm curious to see what Premier Ford is going to do next, because his province is going to be more impacted by this than we are, for sure.
Oh, there's no question. But Canada is going to obviously be impacted. But people don't quite understand, because it is confusing when he says, for example, they'll charge 25% on everything coming in from Canada, and then says, and Canada will pay it, of course.
Yeah.
What he does, that's not true. We're not going to pay that money to the U.S. coffers. They're going to collect it from the wholesale buyers in the United States and put it in the U.S. But where it's going to impact Canada is that if you've been selling product to people in the States for long, well, like Oxford Frozen Foods, for example, and you mentioned they have a couple of plants in New England, very much a kind of Canadian-American partnership deal going on. But if you've been selling product from here to them and suddenly there's 25% added to the cost, then you're going to probably say, I can't buy as much as I used to. So the impact on Canada is simply the people who sell to the States are going to find it very, very difficult to continue to sell their products, because the price is going to take a sudden lurch forward, and people will either stop buying completely or cut back on their buying, and all of a sudden, and you gave the example of Oxford Foods, all of a sudden the market in the U.S. is going to get very difficult. And if they have a glut of blueberries on their hands, it gets very difficult for Oxford Frozen Foods in Oxford. And, just all of this kind of stuff flows downhill, as you know.
Yes, a trickle-down theory, pretty well.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I guess it's a wait and see for the powers that be to decide what course of action they want to follow. But I think we've got to support them in whatever course of action they decide on.
Well, again, it's on your agenda tonight to respond to the Nova Scotia Federation of Municipalities. And as you said, some people are already looking at their shopping. And I think when you say that, most people think of the grocery store. And, easier perhaps to identify what's from Canada and what's from the States. But when you look at everything else, it's very difficult to tell that it may have been purchased through a U.S. company, because so much of our stuff today comes from the Orient. It comes from China. It comes from Japan still, to a certain extent. I remember when you were a kid, we used to make fun of Japanese products because they would say it was from the J.A. Pan Company, and it was cheaper. They were intrinsically cheaper because they paid their employees so little at the time. Yeah. Now, Japan got better at it, made better product, the prices rose, their quality was there, and of course then people started looking for a different place, and it ended up China is the modern day J.A. Pan Company, because they've got very, very cheap labor. And who knows, there's some who would argue they've got children working, they've got people in forced labor, all kinds of situations that we would never tolerate here. And that's why we've got unions, and that's why we've got minimum wages, and that's why our cost of of doing things, building things, making things is higher. And we've put ourselves into this position ourselves by demanding more cheap stuff.
Yes, stuff we really don't need in a lot of cases.
So I go back to the question then, what is town council going to do other than join the people at the grocery store to not buy that stuff that's from the U.S.?
Well, I'd like to say we're in a we'll be in a reactionary mode, but I suppose we can voice our support for whatever actions that need to be taken. Like I say, this is a whole new field for everybody on council. I don't know if anybody on council was there when the last tariffs came in. So, like I say, it's all a learning curve for us, Bill.
Indeed it is. But I also said the other day in my commentary that I think it's a golden opportunity because it's caused us to look at some of the barriers that we've imposed in Canada, not trading with other provinces and so on. And if we get rid of the interprovincial trade barriers, the number came out this week, it really kind of shocked me. They say there's a potential billions of dollars in trade currently wasted or not taken advantage of, just simply selling from coast to coast in Canada. Then they add another few billion if we start doing more business and more trade with Europe. And there are people who think, well, that's a foreign country, but our whole country really came from Europe. If you think back long enough, we're talking about family over there.
Yep, that's right. And like I say, but Europe's not that far away compared to Nova Scotia, compared to California. So, there is a market there. And it's cheap to move product by sea. It doesn't cost nearly as much as to move it by truck.
And that's because of the volume, of course.
Yep, of course. So we shall see how things turn out. I mean, it'll be interesting. May we live in interesting times.
Boy, indeed we do. And I personally think that the long-term picture is solved, or if not solved, is made a whole lot easier by adding to the trade elements inside Canada and with Europe. And at that point, when Trump finally comes to his senses, when he finally stops being a bully and realizes he's not beating us, that when he then says, okay, well, let's open up the trade again, we'll be in a position to say, no thanks, you can take care of yourself. You want to have it all in the States, it's all yours.
Well, yes. Well, that hopefully will be the end result.
So having said all of that about the president, and he wants us to be the 51st state.
Yeah, I can't see that happening anytime, and I just can't see it happening. So I think that's just him blowing smoke more than anything.
I think the tariffs are the smoke, and I think he really wants to have Canada as part of the states. And I think it's got to do with our natural resources, and in particular, it has to do with the fact that Canada has more fresh water than any other place in the world. And that clean, potable drinking water is going to become so rare and so valuable that Canada will be the place. And I think that's what Trump wants. Take over Canada and then take the water.
Well, I think it's manifest destiny come back to visit us again. It rears its ugly head every now and again. I think that's, once again, manifest destiny. The United States was destined to have all of North America, they believe, or some in the States believe. So I think it's just another example of that. But like I said, I don't hear too many Canadians saying, yeah, let's join the States. I think that's a good idea. Most people are just amazed at just how their government works or doesn't work, I guess.
Well, they're finding out that it doesn't work when you get a dictator elected. Yep. But, of course, that's the whole point, isn't it? He was, in fact, elected. He didn't take over in a coup.
Nope. No, he was duly elected.
And isn't that the old saying? The people get the kind of government they deserve?
That is the old saying. It's a true saying. You get the government you deserve.
Mr. Mayor, we haven't, aside from the reference to Oxford Frozen Foods, we haven't talked about your town at all, have we?
Not a bit. Now, we do have a special council meeting tonight after the cow meeting.
Oh, okay. I missed that one.
Well, no, it just... we had an expired fire truck for sale. So we headed out for tenders, and the bids came in, and the fire department committee met last night, checked the tenders. They'll be announcing tonight who got the tenders, and it'll be given as a vote to council as to if we want to accept it. So anyway, we've got that happening. So it'll just be a short town council meeting.
There you go.
We want to deal with it and get it off the books right away.